So let's go into some of the draft guys right now, and we won't really touch on Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, who I heard you on Ross Tucker's podcast. Your, weekly appearances are appointment listening for me, and you're very high on those two guys. I'm more curious. We'll get into some of the depth in this quarterback class, and somebody who I trust has told me that the Patriots like the depth in this class, and I'll be interested to see who might pop for you there. But, Mac Jones out of Alabama, obviously the Nick Saban connection,
right?
Has a lot of people curious. What do you think of Mac?
I think Mac Jones you have to answer this question to determine what your view is of Mac Jones. Okay. And I think different people, and I've talked to some, not with the Patriots, obviously, just, coaches, people along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
You have to answer this question. Do you view movement ability, second reaction ability as a required trait now to play quarterback in the league? Let's put Tom Brady aside.
Mm-hmm.
He's the greatest of all time. Okay, unless you believe Mac Jones is Tom Brady, and I don't say that in a sarcastic manner, unless you believe he's going to be that guy. If you don't believe he's that level of player, then your view about mobility and second reaction improvisation will factor greatly into your worldview of Mac Jones, because he's not a good athlete, he's not big, and he does not have second reaction ability. And he's not a big arm guy. Now, he can make all the throws in the context of specific offenses, but he's not a big arm guy. So you have to decide how important second reaction ability is to you. I've had many coaches tell me now that they view it as critical. I had a GM who you and I both respect tremendously say that you'd like to have it, but he doesn't view it as essential. So it comes down to what your worldview of that is. I vacillate because I'm old school, Greg, because I'm old. So I vacillate, but if you believe second reaction ability is critical and you have to have it, then Mac Jones is not a first round pick because he does not have it and he's not a good athlete.
I'm just curious, to get a sort of put this in context. So if I say like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, where do you put them in terms of movement ability and second reaction throws, just to get a context for Max?
They have it. Burrow is really light on his feet, a really good athlete. And Herbert's 6'6", 240. Jones is 6'2", 217 with not a great body. And see, that would concern me a little bit too, only for this reason. And I don't know Mac Jones, and you hear, his teammates love him and all, you got to be careful about that. Not that they don't love him. That's not my point.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to be careful about the love, because I remember reading Bruce Arians' book, I think was The Quarterback Whisperer. You probably read it as well.
Yep.
And he talked about Kelly Holcomb, and how he was awesome and just everything you want in a quarterback. And, and I don't know Kelly Holcomb, but obviously we know Kelly Holcomb was pretty much a journeyman. Just because guys love you and you have, a great attitude, that doesn't make you a great quarterback. No one's a great quarterback because they take their offensive line out to dinner on Thursday nights. That's not why guys are great quarterbacks. So my guess is Mac Jones, from everything I've read, is an amazing kid. So let's put that aside. But Herbert and Burrow are high-level athletes, and Herbert's 6'6", 240. So, I think that those two guys, in comparison to Mac Jones, I don't think that those are valid comparisons.
Okay. Next up, Justin Fields, who, if I remember correctly, I think you had some concerns about after watching the film on him.
Yeah. And you got to be careful about those concerns too, because I had concerns about Justin Herbert, and those concerns did not show up this past year. Mm-hmm. So he's a high-level traits guy. Big arm, highly athletic, solidly built, can make all the throws, tough, competitive. I think if you look at the traits, you say, wow. But I think he was a little deliberate in a lot of things he did, which you could probably say the same about Herbert coming out of Oregon. So I think it becomes a projection in how you see what you can do with him. So I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, I would never draft him. I think the term I used was that he scares me a little, but that doesn't mean that he can't play, or that if he's coached well and worked through, that he couldn't develop into a really good player. But I think you have to be aware of what the tape shows, particularly this year where there's no combine. I'm sure teams will, obviously being a quarterback, teams will have private workouts with him. And I don't know what the rules are going to be, so you may know that more than I. Yeah. But, you're going to have to do your research. I've heard nothing that indicates that he's a bad kid or anything. That's not what I'm speaking about. So I think, there'd be some things that concern you on the tape, and then you have to make that projection. Now, as you and I both know, quarterbacks that have great movement ability, they can often compensate and camouflage for some of their weaknesses as they develop. And I think that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with your points on that. And also that, these movement type quarterbacks, like it's like you talked about, it's the projection. Like, when is it going to click for them? Sort of like the upper level, passing traits that you're going to pick up in the NFL. Are they ever going to pick it up? I mean, look at Josh Allen. All of a sudden, year 3, he takes off, and you watch him doing all this stuff pre-snap and anticipation throws and all this stuff. Where 2 years ago, you were like, no chance.
And when he came out, look, you remember when he came out, because the tape told you this. It wasn't, it's easy to say, oh, everybody was wrong about Josh. Right. And no one's wrong, because you're watching the tape, and the tape tells you that, hey, this is what he's struggling with. Obviously, if he improves in those areas, and his accuracy and ball placement, and I can't remember, in all my years, I just finished my 41st season. In all my years, I don't remember a guy whose ball placement improved so dramatically. You can't, for the people who loved him, they say, oh, see, I told you so. It's not, I told you so, or you're wrong. It's, here's what the tape shows, and can he improve? Guys do get coached too, Greg, as you know. I mean, that's what happens. It is a coach's job to run a good system, to coach the quarterback, to ideally present, particularly in normal down and distance situations where the defense doesn't have the tactical advantage, to present really well-designed route concepts and define reads and define throws for the quarterback. That's what coaching is. That's the job of the coach. So, when you watch Buffalo's offense, and I really like a lot of the things Brian Daboll did, as I'm sure you did, you see some really nice things that defined it nicely for Josh Allen.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, this next guy might need some of that. Another small school guy like Josh Allen, Trey Lance. Who I have not watched played. I think he's played like one game in like 2 years or something.
Yeah, and
like
that was a bad game. He didn't play well in that
game,
but it was one game this year, and you can't really judge him on that. Look, I had a coach tell me that after Trevor Lawrence, he loved Trey Lance, all the other guys. So, you're going to get mixed opinions. I liked Trey Lance's tape. I watched 7 games from 2019. He's a twitchy kid. He's a sudden athlete, live arm, moves well. Not Lamar Jackson, but he's one of a kind. But, obviously gives you the design run game, gives you the mobility. At times has a little bit of a windup that I think can be tightened a little. You won't change it totally, but I think it can be tightened up a little. He's an intriguing prospect. Now, common sense tells you that he may not be ready to play week 1, but we never know that anymore. You know how that goes. Yep. We say that about a lot of these guys. Oh, they're not going to be ready, and then they play week 1. And even teams, when they draft guys, oh, we're definitely not playing him week 1. And then of course he plays week 1. Or we're definitely not playing him his first season, and then week 3 he's the starter. So all that stuff doesn't mean anything when they say it. The fact that he didn't play college football this year does mean that he's going to have to get up to speed with the speed of the NFL. But there's a lot of traits there that you would really like. And again, if you believe in mobility, he has that.